I think we are bad security practitioner historians. We see the strategies that our current senior security leaders have pursued in the past, admittedly with some successes, but certainly with a raft of failures too. And still, we continue to travel in the same worn-out ruts that our predecessors made for us, moving in the same general direction, incrementally improving the situation day by day, but never stopping to wonder if we've been going in the right direction in the first place. There's a whole new generation of security professionals waiting in the wings for their turn at the plate to become senior security executives that are perhaps wondering if there's a better way. And there's a rafter of turkeys, and I include myself in that group of gray hairs, who have been doing this for a while and wonder if we can get our act together and be better at this kind of thing. My name is Rick Howard, previous CSO of Palo Alto Networks, recovering general manager of iDefense, and a former commander of the Army's Computer Emergency Response Team, and now, at the CyberWire, the host for CSO Perspectives, my podcast about the ideas, strategies, and technologies that senior security executives wrestle with on a daily basis. This show is my attempt to take a fresh look at the act of defending our organizations in cyberspace, but from the executive point of view and through a first principle lens. But it's not just me yelling into the wind how everything is broken and everybody should do it my way, like a grandpa standing on the porch and yelling at the kids to get off of my lawn. To keep me in check, I'm often joined by our hash table subject matter experts, other CSOs and industry thought leaders who come on the show on a regular basis to challenge my crazy ideas and to share their unique experiences and perspectives. This is not your typical security interview show. If any of this sounds like something you'd be interested in, check it out at thecyberwire.com/pro. That's thecyberwire.com/pro.
And now, a message from our sponsor, CyberReason. If you're a defender fighting to protect your organization from cyber attackers, you must be successful ending attacks every single time. They only need to be successful once. CyberReason reverses the attacker's advantage. Their future-ready attack platform gives defenders the wisdom to uncover, understand, and piece together multiple threats, and the precision focus to end cyber attacks instantly. Learn more at cyberreason.com. Zoom prankers deceive European members of parliament with a deepfake video call. A password manager is compromised. Europol took a good whack at Emotet yesterday, removing the botnet's malware from infected machines. The U.S. response to the Holiday Bear campaign receives cautious good reviews. A cyber attack interferes with cancer treatments. Caleb Barlow from Synergistech on emergency notification systems. Rick Howard previews the latest CSO Perspectives podcast focused on the healthcare vertical. And movie-themed fishbait chummed the waters around yesterday's Oscars. From the CyberWire studios at Data Tribe, I'm Dave Bittner with your CyberWire summary for Monday, April 26, 2021. Someone impersonating a spokesman for imprisoned Russian opposition figure Alexander Navalny conducted Zoom meetings with European Parliament members. The sessions featured what The Guardian and NL Times called a deepfake video call, purporting to be Navalny associate Leonid Volkov, which Volkov himself said looked pretty convincing. Speculation about responsibility for the incident has focused on Vovan and Lexus, two well-known Russian prank callers, prankers, as such nuisance humorists are known. The incident is, of course, troubling for coming at a time when Navalny is imprisoned and on a life-threatening hunger strike, and it's worth noting that relatively senior political officials were taken in by the scam. But to place it in perspective, this is more shock jock stuff than it is a spore of a new and devilishly nefarious approach to disinformation. Technically, it's a cut above the kind of jerk who would call the live news coverage to holler Baba Booey during the slow-motion chase of O.J. Simpson's Bronco down the 405 in Los Angeles, but let's keep it in perspective. The lesson is that video that appears genuine in a live call need not be, and that some authentication beyond look and feel is necessary. But we already knew that. It's even become a trope in gag insurance commercials where there's a guy video conferencing with his emu colleague, and so forth. At any rate, on balance, not very funny. And Vauvan and Lexus themselves aren't novices, we note. They've pranked, to name just three, Sir Elton John, the Duke of Sussex, and Senator Bernie Sanders. But many of their targets have been critics of the Russian regime. Mr. Putin himself has not been pranked and seems unlikely to be. A widely used password manager, ClickStudio's Password State, has sustained a cyber attack. The Australian company has warned its customers to reset their passwords. TechCrunch reports that ClickStudios confirmed to customers that the attackers had compromised Password State's software update feature and that their goal was the obvious one of stealing users' passwords. Europol yesterday took another step toward further disabling the Emotet botnet when a time-activated .dll removed Emotet's enabling malware from victim machines. SC Magazine notes the operation's similarity to the FBI's recent removal of malicious web shells from compromised Microsoft Exchange Server instances. The active removal represents the final stage in taking down Emotet. After initial takedown operation, European authorities pushed a new configuration to machines actively infected with Emotet. Bleeping Computer takes the occasion as an opportunity to review the activities of TA-542, also known as Mummy Spider, the criminal organization behind Emotet. Quote, TA-542's attacks usually led to full network compromise and the deployment of ransomware payloads on all infected systems. End quote. Its toolkit includes more than Emotet. The gang delivered Prolock or Egregor by Qbot and Ryuk and Conti by TrickBot. Yesterday's action is being widely hailed as one that may permanently disable Emotet, but botnets have risen from the dead in the past, and so the optimism should be of a cautious variety. But congratulations to Europol and German authorities, and we wish them further good hunting. The Washington Post reports that security experts generally approve the U.S. response to Russia's SolarWinds exploitation campaign, but U.S. Deputy National Security Advisor Ann Neuberger, in a CNN interview, cautioned against expecting too much. The Russians almost surely remain active inside U.S. networks. As far as any long-term effect on Russian policy and behavior, Neuberger said, quote, "We'll know when we see a change with regards to Russia's broad use of cyber to achieve national objectives, and that's something that will take time. To really shape a country's use of cyber, you have to shape the calculus they use on the value and the cost. The SVR is a sophisticated, persistent actor. They play a role as part of Russia's intelligence collection, as part of their malign influence mission, and we know that to shape that calculus is not going to be one action." End quote. A cyber attack against Elekta, a firm whose software is used to operate linear accelerators used in cancer treatment, has taken the firm offline and disrupted cancer care at a number of U.S. hospitals. Affected hospitals are moving patients to other facilities as they scramble to keep up the treatments, WTNH reports. The incident is being described as a data breach, and in the course of remediating the incident, Elekta found it necessary to stop access to its cloud data storage. Online fraud follows current events, and the Academy Awards yesterday provided cybercriminals an opportunity to dangle lures baited with Oscar material before prospective victims, ThreatPost says. Some of the fish bait involved showing trailers of nominated films and then inviting victims to register with a pay card to see the whole performance. Of course, the film didn't run, but the hoods did debit the victims' pay cards. Other scams used more conventional fish bait. Our cinema desk has nothing to say about any of this year's nominations. They've been passive-aggressive like that since the Academy snubbed Sharknado: The Fourth Awakens back in 2016. But we hear that the most commonly abused movie titles were, first, Judas and the Black Messiah, in the lead with 27% of the malware Kaspersky researchers found, followed by Promising Young Woman at 27%, and Trial of the Chicago 7, associated with 21% of the malicious files. We close today with some sad news for the information security community. Dan Kaminsky, a well-known white hat hacker famous for his description of DNS cache poisoning, and long a fixture at DEF CON and Black Hat, has passed away over the weekend at the age of 42, the cause of death being complications of diabetes. Security Week and The Register, among others, ran obituaries. The Register's piece communicates how highly he was esteemed and how well he was liked within the InfoSec community. Our sincere condolences go to his colleagues at Human Security, formerly White Ops, and especially to his family. May they receive comfort and consolation. It's time to take a moment to tell you about our sponsor, Recorded Future. If you haven't already done so, take a look at Recorded Future's Cyber Daily. We look at it. The CyberWire staff subscribes and consults it daily. The web is rich with indicators and warnings, but it's nearly impossible to collect them by eyeballing the internet yourself, no matter how many analysts you might have on staff, and we're betting that however many you haven't got enough. Recorded Future does the hard work for you by automatically collecting and organizing the entire web to identify new vulnerabilities and emerging threat indicators. Sign up for the Cyber Daily email to get the top trending technical indicators crossing the web. Cyber news, targeted industries, threat actors, exploited vulnerabilities, malware, and suspicious IP addresses. Subscribe today and stay ahead of the cyber attacks. Go to recordedfuture.com/cyberwire to subscribe for free threat intelligence updates from Recorded Future. And we thank Recorded Future for sponsoring our show. And joining me once again is the CyberWire's Chief Security Officer and Chief Analyst, Rick Howard. Rick, great to have you back.
Thanks, Dave.
So for this season of CSO Perspectives, you are talking about strategies and tactics for different verticals. And last week, you did the financial vertical. What's in store for us this week?
For the pro side, this episode was a real treat for me to put together. We're talking about the healthcare vertical this week, and the CyberWire just happens to have two members of the Health ISAC that are regulars at our hash table discussions. Have you met them before, Dave? It's Denise Anderson and Era Weiss. Have you talked to them before?
I don't know. It doesn't ring a bell off the top of my head, but I talk to a lot of people, Rick.
Yes,
so
you
could
do.
be. Could be. So, I apologize in advance if I have. Please forgive me. But let's move on, Rick. What are you talking about?
Never ask a question you don't know the answer for. That's the for a host on podcasts.
Right. Well, yes, Rick. I've spoken to both of them, and they were delightful. How's that?
It's perfect.
Okay.
So Denise Anderson is the Health ISAC President and CEO, and Era Weiss is the Health ISAC Chief Security Officer. And what most people don't know about these two is that they were original contributors to the entire ISAC movement that started back in 1999. President Clinton signed a presidential directive back then that created the ISACs, and that stands for Information Sharing and Analysis Centers, and created some 16 critical infrastructure verticals like healthcare, finance, energy, and a bunch more. The one ISAC that got themselves organized quickly and eventually became the model for everybody else was the financial ISAC. And Denise was employee number 2 when they stood it up. I mean, how about that? And Errol was one of the original founding bank member volunteers. So when the Health ISAC decided to up their game a few years ago, they wisely chose Denise to be the CEO. And one of her first moves was to hire Errol as her chief security officer.
Oh, wow. All right. Well, look forward to that conversation for sure. Now, that is over on the pro side where all of the cool kids are. What about what about on the free side of the house, on standard CyberWire? Anything over there?
Yeah, and as we talked about this last week, we're releasing episodes of Season 1 of CSO Perspectives at the same time that we're releasing Season 5 episodes on the pro side. And, we wanted to give folks a chance to get a taste of the pro side before they committed their money to it. Last week on the free side, we talked about Say it with me. Sassy. Come on, Dave. Say it with me.
Sassy. Yes, sassy.
And this week we're tackling artificial intelligence and how it's often mentioned in the same breath as machine learning, which, you and I have talked about this. This is one of my biggest pet peeve no-nos.
Oh, yeah. You are not alone in that one, my friend. There. I mean, that is a bugaboo throughout the industry.
So with that said, though, machine learning techniques have become standard security vendor best practices in certain narrow data domains like SIMs, EDR, XDR, and malware identification.
All right, so there's something for everyone there. Rick Howard, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
And now, a word from our sponsor, Offensive Security. With the skills gap increasing, it's more important than ever to train your staff effectively and efficiently. Industry-leading Offensive Security provides training for your organization designed by the same minds behind Kali Linux and the OSCP. There are many options to fit your specific requirements, such as these offerings. With the OffSec Flex program, they cater to your organization's needs with the ability to train on your own flexible schedule. Plus, they fully support enterprises and organizations of all sizes. You can also learn the industry-leading OSCP certification through dedicated one-to-one mentoring and virtual training with OffSec Academy. This program is the most interactive opportunity, offering personalized instruction. Looking to develop your team's professional pen testing skills in highly realistic simulated networks? Try Proving Grounds Enterprise, created exclusively by Offensive Security's InfoSec experts. Visit offsec.com/CW to learn more. And we thank Offensive Security for sponsoring our show. And joining me once again is Caleb Barlow. He is the CEO at Synergistech. Caleb, it's always great to have you back. Today we are talking about emergency notification systems and the importance of them. What do you got to share with us today?
Well, Dave, we've often talked about the importance of assembling your team quickly in the event of a security incident of magnitude, right? Mm-hmm. You know, and what I like to call this, and this is definitely Caleb speak, you're not going to find this in any book, but I like to call this the duty to convene, right? How do you convene your team in a hurry? So, kind of simply put, it's how do you get your entire team together, including supporting staff, legal, incident responders, business line owners, et cetera, at 3 a.m. on Christmas Eve? And how do you do it in a way that they're actually going to show up, right? So
while the network's down.
Yes, exactly. While the network's down and Slack doesn't work and, blah, blah, blah. So, there are actually great tools out there for doing this. Oftentimes, and what I find a lot of people are using are the same tools you'd use for communicating emergencies to students, whether that's like an active shooter event or a snow day. You can organize these tools by group. They will go through and, call, page, call different phones until they reach somebody. And then that person can say, press 1 if you're responding, press 2 if this is the wrong number type of thing, right? Well, you know immediately who's showing up to your, virtual crisis call or whatever, what department they're in. And you also know who's not coming. So you know where you've got gaps. I think these are really critical systems to have in place. And there's some interesting techniques we've learned on how to get these systems organized.
Okay. What can you share with us?
Well, first of all, one of the concepts, and this kind of comes from the military, is this concept of a warning order. A lot of times when an incident is unfolding in the early days of, in the early hours of an incident, you don't really know if a thing is a thing yet. Like it's starting to look bad, but you don't really know how bad is it. And oftentimes that can be things like let's say there's a major vulnerability that's just hitting the wire and you don't yet know if your systems are infected, or worse yet, is this like one of those vulnerabilities where we're all going to be up for the next 24 hours patching systems and issuing press releases? Or is this kind of a mundane thing and it's just getting, a lot of airtime because somebody's making a big deal out of it? One of the concepts that can be really helpful is this idea of a warning order, where you're not telling your team to convene, but what you're doing is using your emergency notification systems to say, hey, something's up. We may need to convene the team in the next, 6, 8, 12 hours, keep your phone with you. It can be an unbelievably powerful tool because you're not kind of pressing the big red button, but you're giving everybody a little bit of awareness that something's up and we may need to all assemble as a team. It also gives researchers time to dig in and figure out, what's going on and if the team actually does need to assemble.
What about the importance of having all this stuff, printed on paper? Because I'm thinking of, the system goes down, the phones aren't working, just backup copies of all this stuff.
Where do you think I keep my run books, Dave?
You have a shelf?
No, in my underwear drawer. That's where they're supposed to be.
Of course. How silly of me. Yes.
Seriously, though, you're absolutely right. If your run books and plans aren't printed out or on some external system, and here's the other thing, the place you're going to go convene, whether that's a WebEx or a Zoom or, a conference call, it also needs to be off of your network. Like, I can't tell you how many run books I look at. And first of all, to find out the crisis plan, go to our SharePoint repository, held on premise, and let's use the corporate the corporate voicemail system for letting everybody know. That's just not going to work, right? So I think you've got to do that. A good system really should work across multiple media, office, phone, cellular, text message. I would also, and this is probably for the this is kind of the advanced class, but this stuff is not expensive. If you're a critical infrastructure provider considering getting something called a GETS card, which is the Global Emergency Telecommunications Service, it's run by the Department of Homeland Security. It kind of pairs with something called Wireless Priority Service. And what this does is in the event of a 9/11 style incident, it allows you to get access to the phone system even if it's flooded. And it's literally a little wallet card you carry around in your pocket. They don't charge you for it unless you use it. And of course, if you use it, you don't care what it costs you. I'm also a big fan of satellite phones, especially if you have large critical laboratories or development labs in foreign countries, particularly areas where you may have unrest or, you may have cyber incidents or you may even have weather incidents. The great thing about a sat phone is you can get immediate ground truth. They don't cost much to own one. They cost a fortune if you use them. But again, if it's an emergency, you're using it, you don't care. But the great insurance to have around. I remember one bank of mine that was a customer, and this is the extreme, but it gives you an idea. This particular bank moved, gazillions of dollars a day. Yeah. And their issue was if one of their data centers went down, they needed ground truth immediately. And it didn't mean they had backups and redundancy, but they needed to know what was going on. Was this a case of, the power went down for 2 minutes and the generator had trouble restarting and it's going to be back in 10 minutes? Or is this a situation where, no, the data center's gone and you need to move operations somewhere else? They actually deployed Ford Explorers near their data centers about an hour away at employees' homes, full of communications gear, satellite phones, run books, internet connections, that were wireless, all as insurance in that if one of these data centers went down, they had something mobile that could get ground truth back to headquarters in under an hour. Again, that's the extreme case, but these are some of the things we've got to think through. And, for a smaller company, maybe it's as simple as just having a printout in your underwear drawer of everybody's cell phone number.
Right. Yeah, but the time to be thinking about this is not when you're in the midst of the crisis, right?
No, that would be, as they say, too late.
All right. Well, Caleb Barlow, thanks for joining us. Thanks to all of our sponsors for making the CyberWire possible. And that's the CyberWire. For links to all of today's stories, check out our daily briefing at thecyberwire.com. Don't forget to check out the Grumpy Old Geeks podcast, where I contribute to a regular segment called Security. I join Jason and Brian on their show for a lively discussion of the latest security news every week. You can find Grumpy Old Geeks where all the fine podcasts are listed, and check out the Recorded Future podcast, which I also host. The subject there is threat intelligence, and every week we talk to interesting people about timely cybersecurity topics. That's at recordedfuture.com/podcast. The CyberWire podcast is proudly produced in Maryland out of the startup studios of Data Tribe, where they're co-building the next generation of cybersecurity teams and technologies. Our amazing CyberWire team is Elliot Peltzman, Puru Prakash, Kelsey Bond, Tim Nodar, Joe Kerrigan, Carol Terrio, Ben Yellen, Nick Valecki, Gina Johnson, Bennett Moe, Chris Russell, John Petrick, Jennifer Iben, Rick Howard, Peter Kilpie, and I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here tomorrow.